Hello everybody, I did something a little bit silly. So I have a new D&D campaign starting in the nebulous but near future. And call me Miss Piggy because I went ham. If you are also in the new campaign, warning, all the secrets. Don't watch this, please. But if you are not in my Fall of the Roman Empire meets Mordor themed campaign, hi, I did something a little silly and goofy for my new character. I made a whole binder of all of the everything. To anyone who is new to D&D or tabletop RPGs, this is not what is expected of you. If you have filled out your character sheet, know what some of it means, and maybe went onto a pit crew doll making type website and threw something together that kind of looks like your character, you are doing great. You have exceeded most people's expectations. I am an absolute D&D fiend who has too much time on their hands and a hyperfixation. And I will also say, if you are a crafting person who loves seeing the super gorgeous and aesthetic character journals and binders, and you're into the bullet journaling type thing, I'm also going to disappoint you. As anyone who lived on a floor where I was the RA can tell you, I am not a crafty bit. In my heart of hearts, I am still the kid who never figured out how to make the bubble letters look nice. And it is very, very clear in this binder. So if you are here purely for aesthetics, I am sorry to disappoint you. And so then you might very well be asking, well, why did I do something that is not mandatory, not expected at my table, and I'm not particularly good at? There's a couple reasons, if we're being honest. First off, it is late December and early February are not the best time to combine ADHD and a vitamin D deficiency. It's low moods all around, and so anything that is going to spark joy, I will commit to 110%. In addition, I am the type of person who has a tendency to overthink and overworld build in the moments pre-campaign. And I have had a history of very indulgent DMs who do allow me to do this, but I'm trying to be conscious of how much I tread on their toes and in which ways, and focusing the energy on things like playlists and character journals is much more conducive than building out an entire dramatis personae of NPCs that the DM might have also been working on. In addition, some people are full-fledged digital lovers when it comes to their D&D. Some people are purely pen and paper, and I find that I fluctuate. This depends on things like if my character is easily buildable without paying money to Wizards of the Coast, if I am going to be doing it digitally or in person, and how complicated the character is actually going to be when I'm playing them. And Amalthea has a lot of moving parts, and so I wanted to make sure that I was in control of all of these moving parts, because oh boy, they be moving. And so I thought it would be fun to kill several birds with one stone. I can make something aesthetic, distract myself, get a dopamine boost, work on my character, and maybe make a video out of it. I'm mostly testing my microphone to see if I actually can connect the microphone to the iPad or if the guy at Micro Center was full of shit. So we'll see how that goes. So let me take you on a tour of this binder and what I was thinking as I worked on it. That way, if you find that you are inclined to do pen and paper and inclined to do aesthetics for a character, you have an idea of what can be done with that. even if you are not particularly good at crafting. So first thing you might notice, this is a normal binder that you probably used in like 7th grade. There are very aesthetic binders out there that are faux leather bound and look like real notebooks and all of these great things, and that is very cool if you want to do that. But this was cheap, this is durable, and this can be put on my lap and I can write in it, even if my entire desk is full of computers and dice and cat and drink. Opening to the first page, you can see what is sort of a launch pad. I figured my default position is going to be on social encounters, and if I'm moving out of that, I have to change that on purpose, and this is good for having everything that I need for standard play all in one place. I've got my ability scores and my saving throws, I've got languages, proficiencies, I've got my weird perception abilities because as a drow and a werewolf, I have multiple types of fine print around my perception. I have my initiative and my AC here as well, because sometimes you do get surprise attacks in D&D. So it's helpful to have that as part of the base, but I don't need to have every single combat ability here. I can just have those things that would spring us into combat and then flip to a purely combat section. And then when we flip this over, I have a whole page dedicated to equipment. I have very little in here, but plenty of room to grow. The lines themselves are pen, but the equipment it is in pencil. I have this little sticker down here to keep track of my money. It's all there and it's easily accessible because, again, in social encounters, that's going to be something I might need. We're at the inn, we're talking, how much gold do we have to buy our rooms in the inn? We're shopping. Oh, didn't I have that dragon scale I wanted to sell? Having that right there, easily accessible, makes sense in my head. And we have a cover page for the spells. I tried to use a bunch of the stickers that all went in the same theme and the washi tape. The one thing that I can do that is aesthetic is I can write in cursive. So there is a lot of cursive going on because, well, I was taught by nuns, let's be real. I wrote out all of the spells on individual index cards and I taped them in here, not using the double-sided tape I used for most things, but with washi so that I can move them. I'm going to learn at least one more cantrip down the line, and I'm going to learn quite a bit of spells. I am a sorcerer after all. And so being able to have all of my spells and all of my weird spell abilities put together is very helpful, because between drow, sorcerer, lunar sorcerer, and magic initiate cleric, there's some weirdness with some of these spells, and having the abilities that affect the spell with the spell seemed much more helpful than keeping those two items separate, especially if the weirdness only affects 1 to 3 spells. I can just write them out on the card rather than having that as a separate thing that I have to then go look for. Because let's be real, I'm going to eventually forget a feature, and part of this is just making sure that I am minimizing the likelihood that I am forgetting about something important, because I have never played a drow. I have never played a sorcerer in a combat setting, let alone a lunar sorcerer. And I've also never played a fucking werewolf. There's a lot of moving parts. The spell section is designed with room to grow, which then transitions it into my spell slots. I have written them out as fractions if I actually have them, 4 out of 4 first levels, 2 out of 2 second level. That way I'm not erasing the number and then forgetting how many spell slots I currently have at that level, which is something I have messed up on occasion with a fighter character I have. She has certain abilities that she gets 3 a day, certain ones that she gets 2 a day, and I always get mixed up and have to look up which one is which. This way I have lots of room to grow and can hopefully not forget how many spell slots I have, which is extra important with Sorcerer. The next spread is sorcery points and meta magic with room to grow, because I will theoretically get more meta magic abilities, as well as my current amount of sorcery points, again written as a fraction, and a handy dandy chart of the conversions, because, oh boy, I'm not used to sorcerers. This is a mechanic I have never done before, and while I'm sure I will get the hang of it eventually, I am trying to minimize the confusion early on. I've been playing D&D for almost 5 years now. If I don't have to have my hand held, I'd prefer not to. We transition into just pretty sparkly paper because I spent money on lots of pretty cardstock and I wasn't getting the chance to use much of it. And each of these pages I didn't have a need to have something on the other side, so I just didn't. Here we have the combat spread. This has my HP, my saving throws, my AC, my spell attack and spell DC, as well as what my different attacks and bonus actions and reactions can be, with room to add more as I get them. You know, I'm gonna get counterspell hopefully down the line. I might get a cool new weapon. I might get a new bonus action or something if I multi-class, and death saves, because that is a thing I need to think about, especially as a squishy caster. And there's that really pretty sticker. There's a lot of fun pretty stickers I picked up at the craft stores, plural, and that was one of my favorites for my Lunar Sorcerer Acolyte page. More pretty cardstock, and my werewolf mechanics. The werewolf mechanics are a huge reason why I felt like I couldn't just make this character digitally, because we futzed with them a little bit, and so I needed to have all of those special rules in one place. And the logic here being, I am going to know that I am going into werewolf mode before I go into werewolf mode, because either I am choosing to use shape changer, or I know that this is the full moon scene. It's not as essential to be right there in the middle of my spells and weapons as it is to be its own separate thing for when that situation comes up. The back of that is just a bunch of the very pretty stickers that I was worried I was not going to get to use. I still have so many stickers, so don't worry, I will be able to expand. And then the next page is just like all of my random miscellaneous features that don't affect certain spells or certain abilities. They're more generalized. It's my 2 random elf traits and my Shelter of the Faithful from my Acolyte background. These are very situational, and so I'm not going to be needing to reference them all the time, just some of the time, and keeping them all in one spot makes more sense than forcing them into random spots they don't necessarily belong. And I imagine I will have more of these as time comes, so I left lots of room to grow. And then we have the very sparkly backstory. I did keep it tame. It fits on 1 page front and back. I feel like that is pretty good by my standards, and I used all of my constellation stickers. Well, not all of my constellation stickers. I used only constellation stickers on these pages because she is a lunar sorcerer and a follower of a moon goddess. Speaking of whom, the next several pages are dedicated to the religion world building that I did. My DM is very gracious. We've got tenets and terminology and jargon, as well as all these different prayers and sacraments based off of things like eclipses and phases of the moon. I used a few more stickers, and I used the heck out of my silver color pencil that I bought. The color pencils didn't come up as often as I thought it would, but when they did, very useful. And the last of the religious notes before I've got my blank loose sleeve. And it's entirely possible that I'm going to need to expand this much sooner than I anticipate. We might have a lot of NPCs to keep track of, where a Dramatis Personae would be really helpful. I might end up multi-classing. I haven't really had strong feelings about it, but given her story, it would make sense. Heck, I might have letters or to-do lists or a journal that I want to keep track of, and keeping that separate would be handy. I don't know yet. We haven't had a first session yet. This is all preemptive work, but I think it makes sense with how my brain functions, as well as how the flow of my table usually works. And I had a lot of fun working on this, which at the moment is the most important part. It really sparked joy for me. So I'm very excited to get to play my Drow, Lunar Sorcerer, Acolyte, Werewolf, no matter how much of a mouthful that is, because it's going to be really fun, and at the very least, I am prepared. How do you guys feel about character journals and note organizing and digital versus pen and paper? There is a lot to have an opinion on, and I am curious what you thought of this particular project and my kind of wacky build. And who knows, maybe I will give an update down the line about how this notebook binder and Amalthea herself have changed. I am so used to being able to end videos with "I'll see you tomorrow." I genuinely don't know how to end them without it. I learned how to play Magic the Gathering over Christmas. That's cool, right? Bye.